They didn't invite me to the reunion until they found out I owned the venue. They planned the reunion like it was the event of the decade, catered food, fairy lights, a playlist of old school favorites. Everyone made the list except me. No invitation. No accidental oversight. Just silence. But here's the twist: the elegant downtown venue they booked? I own it. My name is Eliza, the girl they used to forget in hallways, group chats, and yearbook pages. That night, they reunited to remember who they were, not knowing they'd stepped into the story of who I became. This isn't revenge. It's growth. Quiet, steady, powerful. Have you ever been left out, only to rise beyond the room? Part 1. The Wallflower Years. They planned the party. I owned the building. But they never thought to include me. Hi, I'm Eliza. And before we talk about that night, the one where they walked into the reunion venue I owned, I want to take you back to where this story really started. Not with real estate. Not with titles. But with silence. Back in high school, I wasn't the loud one. I wasn't the funny one. I wasn't the girl they whispered about because she was interesting. I was the one they didn't whisper about at all. I was forgettable. The kind of person people remember as, oh, she was in our class? I wasn't left out because they disliked me. I was left out because they never saw me in the first place. I sat toward the back of the classroom, sketching floor plans in the margins of my notebooks. While other girls scribbled hearts and initials, I drew rooftops and tiny staircases. Not because I didn't want to fit in, but because it became clear, early on, that I wouldn't. So I found other places to exist. I built quiet worlds on paper, ones where I belonged. I wasn't bullied. That might have been easier, honestly, because at least then I would have taken up space in someone's mind. But being invisible? That's a slower kind of ache. You start to wonder if maybe you're the problem. Maybe you are forgettable. Maybe there really is nothing to see. And yet through all that quiet I was watching. They never noticed, but I saw everything. I saw the way certain people only laughed at jokes when the right person told them. I saw how being chosen for the group project had nothing to do with skill, and everything to do with lunch tables. I saw how the girls who didn't speak up were seen as weak, and how the boys who failed quietly were still given second chances. I absorbed it all. And slowly, without realizing it, I started making a vow to myself. Not the dramatic kind you yell into a mirror. Just a quiet promise, sealed with each look I didn't get. Each party I wasn't invited to. Each compliment that skipped me. One day, I whispered to myself, they may not see me now, but I will make sure they see what I build. Let me ask you something. Were you ever the invisible one? The overlooked one? Maybe not bullied, but just never quite chosen? I want to hear how that shaped you. Drop your story below. I read everyone. Because sometimes the strongest voices come from the quietest corners. Now don't get me wrong, I wasn't sitting there in 10th grade thinking, I'll own a luxury venue one day and watch them walk into it clueless. No, that came later. This part of the story isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. Because here's the truth no one tells you when you grow up feeling small. You start to build space around you. Not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. And that space, that's where your ideas bloom, where your strength takes shape, where your voice learns to rise even if no one's listening yet. I remember one day during senior year, a popular girl, I think her name was Kelsey, asked if she could borrow my charger. She didn't know my name. She never had. But she smiled politely, like I'd just magically appeared that day. And I smiled back, handed her the charger, and thought, you don't have to remember me. But someday you'll know my name. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew I was planting something. Not out of spite. Out of survival. Because the thing about being invisible? Eventually, you realize you can go anywhere. Do anything. No one's watching. No one's doubting you because no one's paying attention. And that kind of freedom? It's a secret weapon. So while they were curating memories, I was building a blueprint. Not just for buildings, but for belonging. Tell me in the comments, was there a moment in your youth when you decided, I'll show them, not out of anger, but because I owe it to me? Share that spark. Someone reading needs to hear it. And now we're ready for part 2. Because what they didn't know was after I walked away from who they said I was, I started walking toward who I was meant to be. Stick with me. The best part's still to come. Part 2. The blueprint of my becoming. You know that moment when you realize no one's coming to rescue you? That if you're going to build a life that feels like yours, you'll have to draw the plans and lay every brick yourself? Yeah. That moment came for me right after graduation. No scholarships. No savings account. No aunt sending checks just in case. Just me, a minimum wage job at a coffee shop on 4th Street, and a second-hand laptop with a screen so scratched it looked like it had been through a war. While the others posted pictures in their sorority sweatshirts and graduation parties, I was pouring lattes and pretending the smell of steamed milk didn't make me feel stuck. But even behind the counter, I had a plan. Sort of. More like a whisper of one. I enrolled in free online courses during my off hours. Interior design. Architecture basics. Branding. Anything that helped me turn the sketches in my notebooks into something real. I watched YouTube tutorials until my eyes burned. I stayed late at the shop after closing, wiping tables with one hand and drafting floor plans with the other. Nobody saw it. That was the theme of my life back then, unseen effort. But here's the thing. Sometimes the most powerful things grow in the dark. I started picking up small gigs, designing interiors for rental units, styling Airbnb listings with thrift store finds, helping a friend's uncle redesign his barbershop waiting area. It wasn't glamorous, and definitely not lucrative, but it was a start. And each time I saw someone sit in a space I helped shape, something inside me stood up a little taller. Every dollar I saved, I didn't spend. I stacked it, folded it into a silent dream, one I never shared out loud because I knew how it would sound. Eliza? A business? With what money? The girl who got left off the group project list was now going to launch a venue company? Please, so I stayed quiet. But my ambition got loud. And then one day I saw it. A small commercial space tucked between a florist and a bakery on the edge of town. It was worn down. Pale green walls. Dusty crown molding. But when I stepped inside, I saw more. I saw tables lit with candles. I saw music echoing off warm walls. I saw possibility. I saw home for the girl who never got invited to places like it. The rent? Just barely doable. The risk? Terrifying, but I signed the lease anyway. And when I walked out with the keys in my hand, I didn't feel like I'd made it. I sat in my car and cried. Because I had done something no one clapped for. No one praised. No one posted about. But I had done it, alone, quietly, completely. Tell me, what was your first win, the one no one saw coming? Was it a promotion? A diploma? Saying no to something that once defined you? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments, and let's celebrate those private victories together. Because they count. More than anyone knows. I poured myself into that space. Scrubbed floors. Painted walls. Hung every light fixture with trembling hands. I had no staff. No money for marketing. Just a vision for something better. For a place that felt beautiful, inclusive, warm. Like all the rooms I was never invited into, finally built with someone like me in mind. And slowly bookings trickled in. First it was baby showers. Then bridal brunches. Then milestone birthdays. Word spread. People started calling. The girl who once sat alone at lunch was now the owner of a space people fought to get into. But even then, I didn't tell them. I didn't post about it. I didn't send out announcements to my old classmates. I didn't have anything to prove to them anymore. I wasn't trying to be remembered. I was building something unforgettable. And that's when it happened. One morning, I opened my inbox and saw the subject line. High school reunion venue booking inquiry. They didn't know it yet, but they were asking me for a seat in the very space they never gave me one in. But that part's next. Stay with me. Because what happened at the reunion? You won't believe what they said when they saw me. Part 3. The unexpected booking. Have you ever opened an email that stopped time? It was a regular Thursday. My inbox was packed with requests, brides needing seating charts, a bakery needing access for early delivery, a plumber who rescheduled again. I was juggling coffee in one hand and my phone in the other when I saw the subject line. Event inquiry, Jefferson High 10-year reunion. My heart skipped. At first I thought it was spam, or some misdirected message. But no, the names were real. Familiar. burned into my memory like a bad yearbook quote. The same names that used to circle the cafeteria without ever stopping near my table. The ones who threw parties I was never invited to. And here they were, booking their reunion. At my venue. The form was polite. Standard. We're looking for a modern, intimate space to celebrate the class of 20XX. They had no idea who owned it. No clue that the girl they ignored for 4 years would be the one reviewing their request. There was no "Hi Eliza," no personal message, no "Hey, is this really you?" Just business. And that's how I treated it. I approved the booking in under 10 minutes. No discounts. No note. Just confirmation. The irony? They didn't even know I'd be reading it, let alone standing behind the walls of the space they were about to decorate with old memories and lukewarm nostalgia. I didn't plan to be there. I wasn't looking for a confrontation or some grand movie moment. I just wanted to know it was running smoothly. My team handled everything, from setup to music cues to dessert service. I stayed tucked away in the back office, watching from the security monitor, like a quiet producer behind the curtain, until the event coordinator knocked on the door. "Eliza," she smiled. "The reunion group is asking if the venue owner could say a few words. It's kind of tradition at these things." My throat dried. I could have said no. Could have laughed it off and passed the mic to someone else. But something in me whispered, "Why not you?" So I said yes. I stepped out into the venue. The music softened. Laughter stalled. Dozens of heads turned. And for a few beats, no one said a thing. I watched faces try to place me. Eyes squinting, lips parting, brows furrowing. And then "Eliza," one voice asked. I smiled. "Yes," I said, picking up the microphone. "That Eliza. That Eliza who ate lunch in the art room. That Eliza who designed your senior banner and never got thanked. That Eliza who used to doodle dream spaces while you were choosing prom themes. The one you forgot. Until now." I didn't gloat. I didn't monologue about resilience or underestimation. I simply welcomed them. Thanked them for choosing the venue. Said I hoped it brought back good memories. I spoke the way I'd always wanted to be treated, warmly, briefly, with kindness. Because this moment wasn't about showing off. It was about showing up. And as I handed the mic back and stepped off the small stage, a quiet hush lingered. I saw people whispering. Some avoided eye contact. Others approached. "You really own this place? Eliza, this is beautiful. I had no idea you went into event design." I nodded. Smiled. Politely thanked them. Because I wasn't here for closure. I already had it. This was simply full circle. Have you ever been in a moment like that? When the ones who underestimated you walked into your world without even knowing it? What did you do? Did you say something? Or simply let your success speak for itself? I'd love to hear. The reunion carried on. Toasts were made. People danced to songs that used to fill our gym. I watched from the sidelines, not because I didn't belong, but because I chose to. I wasn't the shy girl anymore. I was the architect of the very room they were now calling magical. And when it ended, after the guests left and the lights dimmed, I walked through the empty venue barefoot, heels in hand, listening to the echo of laughter against my carefully curated walls. That night I didn't cry. I didn't laugh either. I just breathed. Because sometimes silence is the loudest way to say, "I made it." But just when I thought the story had closed with a quiet smile, something unexpected happened. The next morning, I got a text from my mother. And the message she sent? Well, it cracked open a part of me I thought I'd buried long ago. Stay with me. Because part 4 isn't about the reunion crowd. It's about the one person whose absence used to hurt the most. And what happened when she finally showed up. Part 4. Grace in the spotlight. They didn't clap when I stepped off the stage. They didn't rush to hug me. In fact, some barely made eye contact. That's the thing about unexpected success. It makes people uncomfortable. Especially when it blooms quietly, without their applause. After the shock wore off, they started trickling in. A few offered soft compliments. "This place is beautiful, Eliza. I had no idea you owned this." Some tried to recover with jokes. One guy said, "Guess we should have invited you to the planning committee, huh?" And I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. That subtle rewriting of history where they act like forgetting me was just a harmless oversight. But I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. Because here's what they didn't realize. I wasn't building my life for them to notice. I was building it so I could stand in a room like this and not need them to. One woman, someone who once rolled her eyes when I answered a question in class, leaned in and whispered, "We didn't know you were doing so well." I smiled and said, "You weren't supposed to." And I meant it. Because this wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving me right. I didn't need their recognition to validate my worth. That had already been decided, and every late night I spent designing blueprints while my hands trembled from exhaustion. Every invoice I sent out from a rented room with peeling paint. Every dream I dared to dream when no one was clapping. They didn't see that part. But I did. And that night, as they mingled and reminisced, I stood tall in the back of my venue, not as a guest, not even as a host, but as a woman who had quietly claimed every inch of her own story. Have you ever experienced success that felt so personal, so sacred, that you didn't need anyone else to see it for it to feel real? What does your version of quiet success look like? I would love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. You never know who you might inspire just by telling it. As the night wore on, someone asked if I wanted to join them for the group photo. And for a moment, I hesitated, not out of shyness, but out of reflection. That photo would show the faces of people who once didn't see me. But then I thought, maybe that's exactly why I should be in it. Because being visible now isn't about ego. It's about evolution. So I walked over, stood beside the classmates who once walked past me in the halls, and smiled, not for them, but for the girl I used to be. The one who once sat alone at lunch and wondered if she'd ever feel like she belonged. That girl? She built this moment. And as the camera clicked, I felt something surprising. Not revenge, not regret, but grace. Pure, steady, earned grace. What about you? Has there been a time where you stood in a room and realized you no longer needed to be accepted to belong? Comment below. Let's hold space for each other's growth. And just as I thought the night had given me all the closure I never asked for, someone approached with a different energy. Someone I hadn't seen in years. My mother. She hadn't RSVP'd. She wasn't on the list. But there she was, walking in with cautious eyes and an envelope in her hand. That moment, it didn't crack me open. It invited me to close a chapter one didn't even know I was still writing. So if you've made it this far, thank you for walking with me through this story. But don't go yet. Because what my mother handed me in that envelope, it changed everything. Stay for the conclusion. Because this isn't just about reunions. It's about finally coming home to yourself. They didn't invite me, and that's okay. I wasn't building my life to be seen by them. I was building it to see myself clearly. What mattered most wasn't being included, but knowing I no longer needed their approval to feel worthy. That night reminded me of how far I'd come quietly, steadily, and on my own terms. Have you ever written your own story after being left out of someone else's? Share it below, I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to NA Family Story for more stories that heal, inspire, and empower.